Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
Thinking that is coherent and logical. Endowed with the capacity to reason. Thinking that is coherent and logical. Thinking that is coherent and logical. Possessing sound knowledge. Endowed with the capacity to reason. Exercising or showing good judgment. An intelligent solution. Having the capacity for thought and reason, especially to a high degree. Is there intelligent life in the universe? Endowed with the capacity to reason. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. Thinking always made him frown. Of or associated with or requiring the use of the mind. The triumph of the rational over the animal side of man. An integer or a fraction. Capable of being expressed as a quotient of integers. Rational numbers. Consistent with or based on or using reason. Rational behavior. Having its source in or being guided by the intellect, as distinguished from experience or emotion. A rational analysis. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. A personal belief or judgment that is not founded on proof or certainty. What are your thoughts on Haiti? The content of cognition, the main thing you are thinking about. The thought never entered my mind. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. She paused for thought. The organized beliefs of a period or group or individual. 19th century thought. The process of using your mind to consider something carefully. Reasoning from the general to the particular, or from cause to effect. The reasoning involved in drawing a conclusion or making a logical judgment on the basis of circumstantial evidence and prior conclusions rather than on the basis of direct observation. The reasoning involved in drawing a conclusion or making a logical judgment on the basis of circumstantial evidence and prior conclusions rather than on the basis of direct observation. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood. The methodical process of logical reasoning. I can't follow your line of reasoning. A slight depression or fold in the smoothness of a surface. His face has many lines. Mechanical system in a factory whereby an article is conveyed through sites at which successive operations are performed on it. A connected series of events or actions or developments. Historians can only point out those lines for which evidence is available. The road consisting of railroad track and roadbed. A conceptual separation or distinction. There is a narrow line between sanity and insanity. A succession of notes forming a distinctive sequence. A conductor for transmitting electrical or optical signals or electric power. The principal activity in your life that you do to earn money. He's not in my line of business. Make a mark or lines on a surface. Draw a line. Often plural, a means of communication or access. Lines of communication were set up between the two firms. The descendants of one individual. His entire lineage has been warriors. Space for one line of print, 1 column wide and 1/14 inch deep, used to measure advertising. A short personal letter. Drop me a line when you get there. A telephone connection. Be in line with, form a line along. Trees line the riverbank. The maximum credit that a customer is allowed. A particular kind of product or merchandise. A nice line of shoes. A pipe used to transport liquids or gases. A pipeline runs from the wells to the seaport. A commercial organization serving as a common carrier. Acting in conformity. In line with. A formation of people or things one behind another. The line stretched clear around the corner. A formation of people or things one beside another. The line of soldiers advanced with their bayonets fixed. A fortified position, especially one marking the most forward position of troops. They attacked the enemy's line. A length, straight or curved, without breadth or thickness, the trace of a moving point. A mark that is long relative to its width. He drew a line on the chart. A single frequency, or very narrow band, of radiation in a spectrum. A spatial location defined by a real or imaginary unidimensional extent. Cover the interior of. Line the gloves. Fill plentifully. Line one's pockets. In games or sports, a mark indicating positions or bounds of the playing area. Mark with lines. Sorrow had lined his face. Persuasive but insincere talk that is usually intended to deceive or impress. Let me show you my etchings as a rather worn line. Reinforce with fabric. Lined books are more enduring. Something, as a cord or rope, that is long and thin and flexible. A washing line. Text consisting of a row of words written across a page or computer screen. The letter consisted of 3 short lines. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood, the methodical process of logical reasoning. I can't follow your line of reasoning. A set of techniques for exploring underlying motives and a method of treating various mental disorders, based on the theories of Sigmund Freud. His physician recommended psychoanalysis. The abstract separation of a whole into its constituent parts in order to study the parts and their relations. A branch of mathematics involving calculus and the theory of limits, sequences and series and integration and differentiation. A form of literary criticism in which the structure of a piece of writing is analyzed. An investigation of the component parts of a whole and their relations in making up the whole. The use of closed class words instead of inflections, e.g., the father of the bride, instead of the bride's father. The act of predicting, as by reasoning about the future. A statement made about the future. The act of predicting, as by reasoning about the future. Seeing ahead, knowing in advance, foreseeing. The power to foresee the future. A prophetic vision, as in a dream. The proposition arrived at by logical reasoning, such as the proposition that must follow from the major and minor premises of a syllogism. Logical and methodical reasoning. The reasoning involved when you assume the conclusion is true and reason backward to the evidence. Go back to a previous state. Returning to a former state. Get worse or fall back to a previous condition. The reasoning involved when you assume the conclusion is true and reason backward to the evidence. Go back to bad behavior. Go back to a statistical means. The combination of ideas into a complex whole. Reasoning from the general to the particular, or from cause to effect. The process of producing a chemical compound, usually by the union of simpler chemical compounds. The combination of ideas into a complex whole. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood. The methodical process of logical reasoning. The abstract separation of a whole into its constituent parts in order to study the parts and their relations. An expectation. The act of predicting, as by reasoning about the future. Something expected, as on the basis of a norm. Each of them had their own anticipations. Anticipating with confidence of fulfillment. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood. The methodical process of logical reasoning. A fact or assertion offered as evidence that something is true. It was a strong argument that his hypothesis was true. A discussion in which reasons are advanced for and against some proposition or proposal. The argument over foreign aid goes on and on. A summary of the subject or plot of a literary work or play or movie. The editor added the argument to the poem. A contentious speech act. A dispute where there is strong disagreement. They were involved in a violent argument. Computer science. A reference or value that is passed to a function, procedure, subroutine, command, or program. A variable in a logical or mathematical expression whose value determines the dependent variable. If f, x, equals y, x is the independent variable. A course of reasoning aimed at demonstrating a truth or falsehood. The methodical process of logical reasoning. A discussion in which reasons are advanced for and against some proposition or proposal. To believe especially on uncertain or tentative grounds. A message expressing an opinion based on incomplete evidence. A hypothesis that has been formed by speculating or conjecturing, usually with little hard evidence. He dismissed it as mere conjecture. Reasoning that involves the formation of conclusions from incomplete evidence. An amount or percentage deducted. A reduction in the gross amount on which a tax is calculated. Reduces taxes by the percentage fixed for the taxpayer's income bracket. Something that is inferred, deduced or entailed or implied. The act of subtracting, removing a part from the whole. Reasoning from the general to the particular, or from cause to effect. The act of reducing the selling price of merchandise.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.